Hey everyone, it's Mary Ann from the New York City Organization of Public Service Retirees. I came across a little interesting history, and for New Yorkers and baseball to collide with court and the retirees, this was just too interesting to pass up. So indulge me for a little while because I found this very intriguing and wanted to share it with you. So we were in court on March 21st, and it was live streamed on YouTube, and you can see it even though you couldn't come. And it was just wonderful to be there with our attorneys and several hundred of you. And many of you can get into the court. Many of you went to the overflow room downstairs, and unfortunately, many of you could not get into the court, but you stayed around and tried to stay warm until we got out 25 minutes later. And then you met us in the park for the recap. One of the things we missed, because it was only about 20 minutes that we were in court, was as all the retirees were exiting court for the next case to start, the main justice came back into the room, the one that had recused herself, Justice Manzanet. And then she made a comment, and I want to share this with you and explain to you what it meant, because when I asked and I learned about it, I was very intrigued, and I'm excited to share this with you. So check this out. So she's motioning to the attorney to wait a moment because everyone is leaving, and you can see their feet down here as they're walking at the top of the picture-in-picture. And he's been standing there patiently.
Oh, good. You've never had such a big full house.
Not since the Yankees case.
That's true.
And there it is. Justice Manzanet here in the center says we have never had such a full house. And Justice Gessmer says not since the Yankees game. And what does that mean? So this clip that's going to play is from MLB.com.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. That's gone. And now the Royals have the one-run lead. George Brett has just homered, and Billy Martin and the Yankees want the bat. Look at Martin.
Well, what they're talking about, Frank, is that he's got too much pine tar, and you've got to have a certain amount of distance from the trademark of the bat and the pine tar.
And Nettles is leaving the field as if the game is over. No, he's just coming in.
I'm not sure. They might have a legitimate gripe. And the umpires are going to get together. George Brett looking around and wanting to know what's going on, and the umpires are going to get together and talk about this thing.
Well, Billy Martin bounced right out of the dugout.
I've seen it called before, Frank. You are not allowed to have a substance of any kind above the trademark, and I can't tell from here because everybody's huddled around the bat. I cannot tell from here if it's up too far. And now they're feeling it. See, as if there's some sticky stuff around there.
That's Nick Bremigan with the bat.
This is going to be an interesting call.
Well, Brett isn't sure whether he has a home run yet or not.
Now the umpires are going to walk away and talk about this and go over the rules and examine the bat. See where the pine tar, see the label, the trademark is?
Yeah.
See the brown substance there?
It does look like
that's pine tar.
It looks like it is.
Now you are not allowed to have that pine tar up that far on the bat. Billy Martin walking around waiting for the, which might be an important decision.
First time in a long, long time I've seen the umpires huddle this long and have a meeting over it.
Well, they're going to see what's going to happen. They're going
to... Now that is the plate umpire, Tim McClellan, with the bat in his hand. Now they're going to measure it across home plate.
I've never I've never seen this.
I never have either.
I don't know what they're measuring. They might be going to call George Brett out.
Well, the Yankees win. He's out.
Yes, sir.
Brett is out. Look at this. Brett is out. And
He's steaming mad.
he is out and having to be forcibly restrained from hitting plate umpire Tim McClellan. And the Yankees have won the ball game 4-3. Brett is called out for using an illegal bat or with the illegal substance on the bat.
Like I said, I have seen this before, Frank, and Gaylord Perry just took the bat away from home plate umpire Jim McClellan. He's going to take the bat. They're going to take it so they cannot take it into the American League office or wherever they take it to be examined.
Well, a Yankees security person and one of the umpires quickly are chasing whoever has the bat. Jose Martinez is holding Brett. Bobby, I've never seen this in my life.
Well, I've seen players called out for using an illegal bat, but never so an important hit by a home run and then been called out to put the Royals ahead. George Brett was fighting mad, and whether he has a cause to be mad or not, I don't have any idea. The umpires made a decision.
Bobby, let me say this to you. The fact that they tried to take the bat away and secrete the bat lends credence to the umpire's call in my estimation.
Isn't that crazy? So now here's a little recap and then a little article I'm going to share with you as well. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about the judge.
This episode of today's iconic moment in New York sports history is presented by Tri-State Cadillac Dealers. August 18th, 1983, the Yankees and Royals concluded the infamous Pine Tar game at Yankee Stadium. They actually started on July 24th, but after George Brett's ninth-inning home run was questioned due to the amount of pine tar on his bat, that home run was nullified, and the Yankees got the win. The Royals protested the game's outcome, and American League President Lee McPhail ordered that the game be continued from the point of Brett's home run. So, 25 days later, the two teams met to replay the final 4 outs. Brett, however, didn't join the team and went straight to Baltimore, where the Royals were slated to play the next day. Officially, around 1,200 fans were in attendance, but Don Mattingly said it seemed more like 500. Yankees reliever George Frazier struck out Hal McRae for the final out in the top of the 9th, and then Royals reliever Dan Quisenberry pitched a perfect bottom of the 9th for a 5-4 Kansas City win. It took a total of 12 minutes for the conclusion of the game. The infamous bat from the Pine Tar game has been on display in the Baseball Hall of Fame since 1987.
This is a little recap from the Record Journal on Friday, August 19th, 1983. Pine Tar Chronology. So a chronology of the Pine Tar saga, which ended Thursday when the Royals and the Yankees completed their July 24th suspended game. So this game that you just saw the video on was July 24th of 1983. Kansas City's George Brett slugs a 2-run homer in the 9th inning to give the Royals a 5-4 lead, but the Yankees objected to the pine tar on Brett's bat handle, which exceeds the 18-inch allowable area, and the umpires called Brett out. The Yankees win 4-3, and that's the video you just saw. July 25th, the Royals filed protest with the American League over umpire's decision. On July 28th, the American League President Lee McPhail overrules the umpires and upholds the Royals' protest. He says Brett's homer will count and the game will be resumed with Kansas City ahead 5-4 with 2 out in the top of the 9th. On August 8th, McPhail rules that the game must be completed August 18th, game time to be determined, instead of at the end of the season. The decision angers Yankees owner George Steinbrenner, since August 18th is his team's only scheduled day off in a 31-day span. August 11th, McPhail sets a 6 p.m. Eastern Time starting time for the resumption. The Yankees had wanted a 2 p.m. start. On August 15th, Two separate lawsuits are filed by fans in New York saying that they should not have to pay the $2.50 charge to see the resumption since they were entitled to see the entire game for one admission. On August 17th, the Bronx, New York State Supreme Court justice says that he will decide the following day whether to grant a preliminary injunction which would prevent the resumption of the game. On August 18th, the Bronx judge grants the injunction, but the New York State Appellate Court, which is where we just had our New York City retiree case heard, overrules the lower court decision, allowing the game to go on as scheduled by the American League. After 4 outs, the Royals hold on to a 5-4 triumph. And this was crazy. The attendance at the courthouse and actually in the article it talks about that the people that sued to stop this were actually kids. To finish the top of the ninth with only about 1,500 people in attendance at Yankee Stadium, the Yankees fielded an unusual lineup that saw left-handed thrower Don Mattingly at second base and the Yankees ace left pitcher Ron Guidry in center field. Before the first pitch was thrown by George Frazier, he stepped off the rubber and threw to first base, appealing whether Brett had touched on his trip around the bases where first base umpire Tim Welke ruled safe. The Yankees then appealed to second base umpire Dave Phillips, at which point Yankee manager Billy Martin announced he was playing the game under protest. The basis of Martin's protest was that since the umpiring crew was different than the one on July 24th, the umpires couldn't verify that Brett had touched the bases. American League spokesman Bob Fischel said, however, he has a notarized letter from the original umpiring crew saying that Brett had touched all bases. I mean, this was like one of the craziest games in Yankee history. This action of playing the ending of this game from July 24th only lasted 12 minutes, and it handed the Yankees their 6th loss in 7 games. The New York State Appellate Court earlier in the day had overruled a lower court decision and allowed the resumption of the game to be played. The league had pleaded for an overthrow of the injunction, telling the court that the plaintiffs will not be irreparably harmed as they had adequate remedy at law, to wit, a refund or monetary damage. The defendant, American League, would be severely and irreparably injured by enjoining the game, which may only be completed during the regular season on August 18, 1983, in order to avoid conflicting with the league's valuable postseason nationally televised games. The completion of the game marked an end of a remarkable public reaction that saw the game story appear on the front page of newspapers, inspired at least one ballad, and actually introduced at the White House briefing session. On July 24th, Brett hit reliever Rich Gossage's second pitch to the right field stands for an apparent 2-run homer in the 9th inning, but Martin's protest, the pine tar on Brett's bat, exceeded the 18-inch allowable area for foreign substances on the handle of that bat. The Royals appealed the decision. The American League president, Lee MacPhail, saying that he wanted the game decided by performances on the field and not by technicalities held under protest. MacPhail also angered the Yankees by ruling that the game had to be completed by Thursday instead of at the end of the season, also permitting it to be played at 6 p.m. to accommodate the Royals. The controversy continued earlier in the week when 2 fans filed lawsuits saying that they should not have to pay the $2.50 charge to see the resumption since they were entitled to see the entire game for one admission. The game was finally declared on Thursday afternoon when Justice Joseph P. Sullivan of the New York State Supreme Court Appellate Division for the First Judicial Department stayed a ruling made earlier in the day by Justice Horace V. Maresca of the Bronx State Supreme Court after hearing an appeal from Robert Keel, an attorney representing the American League. Prior to the controversy on July 24th, UL Washington singled off Dale Murray with 2 out in the 9th inning and Gossage relieved. Brett then hit his 20th homer. The New York Baylor had delivered a game-tying run triple, then scored on a single by Dave Winfield in the 6th to put the Yankees ahead. So here's the Historical Society of the New York Court. This photo that you see is Justice Joseph P. Sullivan. He is the son of a New York City corrections officers, yay, correction officers, and the first generation American Justice Joseph P. Sullivan has the distinction of being the longest serving appellate division justice in New York State history, 30 years. Joseph P. Sullivan was born in 1931 in Bronx County. He received his undergraduate and law degrees in St. John's University, BA in 1952, LLB in 1957, and later in 1984, he received his LLM degree from the University of Virginia. Upon his admission to the bar, Justice Sullivan engaged in private practice in the Bronx and New York counties. After 6 years, he became law secretary to Supreme Court Justice George C. Tierney, 1965 to 1968. Judge Sullivan's judicial career began in 1968 when he was elected to the civil court in the city of New York, Bronx County, and he served for 4 years until 1972 when he was elected to the Supreme Court, Bronx County. In 1978, Governor Hugh Carey appointed Judge Sullivan to the Appellate Division First Department. Justice Sullivan will forever be linked to the memorable 1983 New York Yankees George Brett Pine Tar court case, when the home run hit by Kansas City Royals player George Brett was disallowed due to excess pine tar applied to the baseball bat. The president of the American League overturned the umpire's call and ordered the completion of the game. The Yankees then obtained a court injunction preventing the resumption of the game, and the league appealed to the appellate division seeking the vacatur of the injunction. When the ruling was issued, Justice Sullivan proclaimed, "Play ball," recognizing the fact that the Major League Baseball had jurisdiction over the interpretation of baseball rules. The infamous bat is now located in the Baseball Hall of Fame. While the appellate division, Justice Sullivan was nominated 10 times by the Commission for Judicial Nomination for appointment to the Court of Appeals, including twice for the office of Chief Judge. In 2000, Governor George Pataki appointed Judge Sullivan presiding justice of the Appellate Division, First Department, a position which he held until 2001 when he turned 70. At that point, he became an associate justice once again, serving until the end of 2007. Upon reaching mandatory retirement age, after 3 recertifications to the court, Justice Sullivan stepped down from the bench and joined the firm of Holland and Knight as counsel. Justice Sullivan and his wife, Patricia, are the parents of 5 daughters, one of whom passed away in 2009. So that's a little baseball history and the First Department Appellate Court that we were in just this past week with our Medicare case against the city of New York. We thought you'd be interested in that because I kind of thought it was kind of cool when I heard the justice say that and I didn't know what the reference was. And when I asked the court officers about it, they educated us about what that was about, and I wanted to share that with you. So I hope you did enjoy that. It took 41 years for the next historic making news was that it was retirees that came out to protect their health care. And maybe one day in 41 years or so, some justice will say, we haven't had this kind of a crowd in a long time. Oh yeah, since those retirees came to protect their health care from Mayor Adams. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode. Little history here. Have a great night.